This is going to show you some advanced features of Google Sheets. So Google Sheets is going to be your basic spreadsheet and data kind of analysis tool. The nice thing is that Google Sheets is also linked directly in with Google Forms. So any of the data that you're collecting in a form can also be viewed directly onto a spreadsheet. So, what I'm going to show you today are some of the features of Google Sheets that are going to allow you to really engage with the data that you're using. So, the things we're going to talk about in this video are basic formulas and functions, how to freeze rows, how to create charts, how to wrap and format text, conditional formatting and filtering, and then lastly, the Explore button that's built directly within here. So basic formulas and functions are going to be very similar to Excel if you're used to using Microsoft Excel. So what it's going to allow you to do is take the data and have the computer do all of the kind of hard work for you. So I'm going to show you just a couple of formulas that might be helpful for you. And really, the thing you need to know is how to create a formula. So within any of the cells, usually you're going to use an empty cell. You're going to start creating a formula by using the equal sign. As soon as you use the equal sign, you're going to start typing the formula or function that you'd like to use. So I'm going to use the first one is just really basic. I'm going to choose this cell, which is B3, and I would like to add it to this cell, D3. All I need to do is click enter, and it's going to do the hard work for me. I can change any of these numbers, and it's going to change my output. Again, basic math, you can use addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, things like that. So again, basic math, I want to look at growth. So I'm going to look at their post-test minus their pre-test to look at how much they grew. So I'm going to use the equal sign to show that I'm going to start a formula or function. And I'm going to say, I would like to know what this value is here minus this, minus this value is. That's going to show me that I had a 9% growth over time. If I want, I can type that in each individual row. However, the nice part about spreadsheets is it kind of uses the formula or function that you put in, and it tries to copy that down to match each of the rows. So if I wanted the same formula or function to happen in each one of these columns for the corresponding data, I can just grab this little blue corner, I can drag it down, and that's going to be copy and pasted. So now, without doing a whole lot of work, except for typing in one formula, I now have all of this data already tabulated for me. The way in which you can see here, I've also had it calculated. So I know that I had 11 points possible and the student scored 9. So my formula for this column here is I want the value within cell D3 divided by 11, and it's going to give me that percentage. So these basic formulas are really valuable for teachers to be able to get some quick data in terms of assessment, in terms of how you're looking at how your students are doing, and that. So that was just basic math. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, things like that. I may at some point want to get a sum of how many points possible that my students got. So if I wanted to know the sum of how many total points my students earned this quarter on these math tests or something, I can again start with the equal sign to show me that I would like to get the information of the addition. So again, it's basic math, but I'm just using the word sum. I want to know what this cell is plus this cell. It will then guess that I want to autofill all of those columns as well. And I can autofill without even using that little blue dot, and it will just autofill down for me. From here, I'm able to also look at medians. So maybe I want to look at the median percentage. So I'm going to just write median, and I'm going to use the equal sign to start. I'm going to use median. It's going to guess that I want to use this column here. Oops. I'm going to drag this group of values and then close it with the bracket here. And my median value was 45.45. I can look at my average, which is again going to be equal sign, average of this set of values. I can look at my minimum. Again, these are very similar processes, just the command that you're giving the computer. And I can look at my maximum. So very quickly, I was able to look at this information and I was able to quickly pull this data. So looking at where my students are scoring, I've got a couple high flyers, I got a couple low guys, and that makes sense that my median and average are really similar. If I copy and paste this information, here, you'll see that the data automatically changed because it's using the information from this column E as opposed to column C because I copy and pasted the formula directly with that copy and paste. So very quickly I was able to look at that data. I'm able to really compare and contrast the two pre-test and post-test in terms of where my students are at. So that's a very quick way to look at your basic formulas and functions. There's hundreds of different formulas and functions if you're looking to really dive deep into your data, but the quick, easy ones are going to be your basic math, your medians, your sums, things like that. The next one I wanted to show you, or tip or trick, is freezing a row. So freezing a row is going to mean that you have a header either horizontally or vertically that as you scroll through your sheet, you don't want it to move. So if I highlight column or row 1 here, I'm going to view and freeze one row. You can also choose columns, or you can choose up to a current row. So if I had selected maybe I want 5 and all 5 of those top things stay. But right now I just want one row to freeze. So what happens is you'll see that kind of gray bar here. So now as I scroll, my header stays the same, but just my information scrolls. This is really handy when you have a lot of data or a lot of information to sift through and you didn't want to have to remember what your header rows were. Again, this can be done by rows or by columns depending on what information you're looking at and how you're scrolling through your information. When you're ready to create charts, so Google is going to do its best job to figure out what you want your charts to look like, but you can really guide and direct what information you want them to see. So if I have two columns, my X and my Y axis for my data, I can come in here, I can select those two rows, I can then insert a chart. That can also be done by clicking the Insert Chart button directly over here. When I click my chart button, it's going to try to figure out what kind of graph might be helpful. So this is reading data. This is, helpful to look at a class view. I might have wanted a different type of graph or chart. So I'm able to come over here to my chart editing menu. I can then select different kinds of graphs. Depending on what type of data you have, you might need different kinds of graphs. So I can come in here and obviously there's different kinds that are going to work better than others depending on your data. I can stack if I have multiple different data sets. So if I had 3 columns, I wanted my x-axis and then I had 2 y-axis values. So I could stack them so that it would be, in addition. I can change my data range, so I'm looking at different information. I can change what my X or my Y axis is, so if I wanted to switch, I could do that here, depending on how I wanted my data to look. I can change the series right here. What series am I pulling data from? I can also switch rows and columns. I can use header rows. So if I had header rows, I can quickly pop that in here. I can also customize this even further. So again, changing colors. If you wanted to add it into, say, a Google Slides and you wanted it to fit the theme of your presentation, you could do that here. You can change your fonts. You can look at your maximize, so that's going to use the most amount of space possible. You can make it 3D. And you can also compare mode, which is going to allow you to compare data from multiple different charts. Again, your chart title is going to allow you to just add some more information to what you're putting here. So that's the wrong one. And as you type, it's going to allow you to just add that information right in here. Your series is again going to change depending on what series you set up over here. If you wanted to change the color, that's going to be right in here. I can add in some data points and some other features here. I can add in a legend to show what the different brackets mean or what those numbers mean. You can go into your horizontal axis, your vertical axis, and you can also add in some grid lines and things like that to allow just for ease of use. Once you have your chart, the nice part is that this chart, if I were to update data, it's automatically going to change. So once you create your information here, if you go in and update, again, it's going to update your data in your chart. It's all going to be linked. It's not static. It's very dynamic as you go and change information here. The other nice thing is that once I click my kind of information button, the 3 dots up at the top, I can edit the chart, meaning that chart editor is going to come back out. I can delete the chart if I'm no longer using it. I can download it as either an image, which is going to become static. It would no longer edit as you update information. I can download it as a PDF. I can publish this chart, which is going to allow me to have a direct URL to this information. I can copy the chart. I can also move it to its own sheet. The one I really want to focus on is copy chart. So when I copy this chart, if I were to come over here to a Google Doc, and this is just some notes that I have, I can come in and paste. When I paste this into another G Suite tool, I will link to the spreadsheet. It will also automatically update as I change that data. The one thing you want to know is your sharing settings need to align with your spreadsheet. So right now, if you link directly to your spreadsheet, only editors can update the chart. Collaborators, however, can see a link to the source or spreadsheet. So if I paste it in, again, if I come over here and change this information here, within moments, this would then be allowed to be updated. And now that name that I just changed over in the previous tool would then be allowed to be updated. So if you're embedding this right within a Word doc or a Google Doc, you'll then be able to click update. So as data is changed, you'll be able to in real time see that information. Within here, you can unlink. So maybe you don't want it updated, or maybe you were sharing this with students or parents and you don't want it in real time. You can unlink. You can also open the source, which anybody who has editing rights would be able to then see that spreadsheet right within here. So that's basic on creating charts. You can get as fancy or as minimal as you want as you create your charts. Sometimes when you collect information in a spreadsheet, it's really, nice and cohesive. Like this, which just has really basic information, very small amounts of data in each cell. Sometimes when you collect information, especially when you're collecting information in a Google form, you're going to be collecting things and they're really long responses, which is really not user friendly when you're using a spreadsheet to read through those information. So one of the things that's helpful is wrapping and formatting your text. So one of the ways you could do it is you could change the width of your cell so that you can see more at a time. So for instance, I could, bring it out, bring it in. One of the other things you might want to learn to do is text wrapping. So I can choose to overflow, which means it overlaps into the next cell. That's only good if that column is empty. If it's not, it's going to be clipped. If I wrap it, it's going to bring down and just kind of, have my run on within that cell based on the width of each cell. Or I can clip it, and it's basically going to clip exactly what based on the length of that cell. So the most of the time you're probably going to use the wrapping feature. You can also choose to wrap the text. So it might be that you need something vertically, you might need something horizontally, you might need tilting, you might need to put it at a specific angle depending on how you're using it. You might choose to align it either at the bottom of your cell, the top, or the middle. You can also do left justify, center, or right. One of the other things I wanted to show you while we're in this set of data is the merge feature. So if I wanted to take and merge these two cells together to make one slightly larger cell, I can merge the cells. And now I have that ability to have a longer space. I can also merge vertically, horizontally. I can unmerge. One of the things you need to know though is if you have merging, sometimes sorting data, filtering data can be a little bit wonky because of the fact that you have things going into multiple columns or rows. So just be aware that if you are using the merge feature, that's going to be really great for things like visually appealing how things look, but it's going to be a little bit of a challenge if you are going to do some data analysis. Conditional formatting and filtering. So what that's going to allow you to do is look at the information that you have here, and it's going to be able to pick out particular information for you to be able to visually see. So if I want, this was some information that I collected on a needs assessment. So participants were asking if they were confident, not confident, very confident, not available, or they could leave it blank. That was also an option. So as I look at this information, I'm like, well, I really need to be able to look and say, oh, I just want to know the people that answered confident in row A or column A, how did they also fare in these other features? So one of the ways in which you could do that is setting up a filter. So if I want to set up a filter for this column here, I can come up to my create a filter button. It looks just like a funnel. When I create a filter, it's going to allow me to, I see this like little down arrow here. That's going to allow me to either sort a particular row. I can look at a color. So if you had things, color coded, you can do that. You can filter by specific conditions or values. So maybe I just want to turn on all the people that answered confident for column A. So I'm going to turn off all these other values by unchecking, and I'm going to click OK. And now you'll see I now have a truncated list. So now I can see that if they answered confident here, so someone entered confident, but then not confident, confident, not confident. So I can look at how responses came just based on this first value. If I want to turn off that filter, I can either come here and turn to another, or I can choose to come by a specific condition. So if a cell meets a specific condition, I can have, if it's a quantity, if it's a text value, if it's a specific date that something was entered, I can, filter by a specific condition as well. Once I'm done filtering, I can go back up here, turn off filtering, and now my spreadsheet is just as it was previously. I can filter by any of the columns. I can also filter by row. I usually suggest highlighting the entire column or row by clicking on the header, the letter or number that corresponds to the cell, clicking on the filter button, and then clicking your down arrow to filter. One of the nice things also is this filter view. If you want to create a filter that you know you're going to be using often through multiple spreadsheets, you can create a filter and that's going to carry through multiple spreadsheets. So if you have something, multiple class periods where students are responding to different things or multiple subjects that you're teaching and you want to be able to filter, specific things, you can create filters and those will carry through to different spreadsheets as well. I'm going to turn off filtering and show you conditional formatting. So conditional formatting, very much like filtering, is going to allow you to visually see a smaller group of information or visually see that information kind of pop out a little bit. So I'm going to conditionally format. By clicking on my down arrow, I can go to conditionally formatting here, or I can come up to format and click conditional formatting. So when I click conditional formatting, I'm going to apply it to a specific range, and then I'm going to give it a rule. So if the cell contains a specific set of text, so text contains the word vary, I'm going to mark that green. If the cell contains, does not match vary, I'm going to mark it red. So now I have two rules that apply. So anything that does not meet the criteria was highlighted red. Just because it met certain criteria, anything that met the criteria was automatically marked green. So anything that from this point forward, again, that meets criteria, because it has the word vary in it, is going to be automatically highlighted green. So a way in which I had previous teachers using this is imagine a Google form where data is automatically going to be coming into a spreadsheet. If you set up conditional rules, you'd be able to see that information in real time, color-coded for you. So as I am collecting information, I'd be able to see, if I were asking students how their day is going, and I had, answer 5 if you're having a great day, answer 4 if you're having a good day, and so on, I could automatically have those things tagged as green, yellow, red, and I would be able to check in with students right away that had, marked themselves as red or something like that. So the conditional format, again, are going to be if you have certain conditions met, a certain formatting rule like color or the way in which your font looks is going to be changed. The last cool feature, advanced feature I have to show you is going to be the Explore button. So the Explore button is going to be the computer guessing how you'd like to use this information. So I'm going to take and highlight all of the information in my chart, and I'm going to come down here to the Explore button. If the green word Explore is not there, just look for this little icon that's like the square with the starburst in it. I'm going to click the Explore button, and it's going to pull out information. So it's going to give me sample formulas that might be helpful. It's going to ask me, would I like to analyze specific questions or different ways to consider looking at this data? I can create a pivot table, which is going to align specific categories or specific columns against each other. It will create charts based on what it thinks I would want. Again, I would probably never use this pie graph just because it doesn't make sense with what I'm using. But this, bar chart is really quite a nice way to look at pre versus post test. So maybe I do choose to use this chart. I didn't have to go through the whole chart feature. It just was automatically done for us. It automatically has headers. It has some factual information about who my lowest values are. I can come in and I can click the plus button to get a better view, or I can just click insert chart. Here's my chart, and if I do choose to then go and edit this chart to change it to be what I need, maybe I needed to, identify pre versus post test in my legend up here, I can go in and edit. Again, I can publish or copy this chart to additional information. So the Explore button is really just going to be a quick, easy way to analyze data, or the computer to tell you what are some different ways that you could analyze this data.